Fine. So, good afternoon, one and all. I, Dr. Shalini Gautam, Associate Professor DME, would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you. The basic purpose of this webinar is to facilitate students like you to take an informed decision regarding their career. Today, students have a wide range of career opportunities in front of them. They can become lawyer to the media person, budding manager to an entrepreneur. The sky is the limit. So keeping this in mind, today in this webinar, we are going to talk about the various options that Guru Gobind Singh Indraprasth University is giving to the students. Before we start, I would like to personally welcome Dr. Seema Malik ma'am, Principal Salwan Public School. She is a dedicated professional with over 35 years of experience in school education. She has done her MA from Delhi School of Economics and MSc in Human Resource Management from University of London. She has done her MPhil and PhD in Educational Leadership and School Improvement from Cambridge University. Having won a national award from Center of Science and Environment, she has been promoting the cause of sustainability in schools. We welcome you, ma'am. I would also like to welcome our Professor Dr. Ravikant Swami, sir, who is the Director DME. Sir has an illustrious career of being an academician and administration for 24 years and has done a PhD from University of Rajasthan. Now, before sir starts with his presentation, I would like to request Seema ma'am to say a few words.
Thank you, Dr. Shalini. This webinar is the need of the hour, with the students now waiting to get their class 12 results and start getting the process of admission. Because this is the time when wherever they want to go, whatever courses they want to pursue, so they have to start looking for them. Also, sometimes the students do not really have a clear-cut idea that what course they want to join. What exactly they want to do after class 12. Is it going to be an academic course? Is it going to be a professional course? Which university they're going to? And so many times the students are not even aware of the myriad of careers that are available today to the students. For that, they have to go to the appropriate line of study. So we hope that with this webinar, a lot of questions that the students have in their mind about their education, their career, their future life will be addressed. And we shall be asking our counselor, Dr. Preeti Jain, to take up the questions on the students' behalf, or the students can ask directly, because we also want the students to have a clear-cut guidance on career. Thank you so much for having me on this webinar.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Now, without much ado, I would request Professor Swami, sir, to please start with his presentation.
Okay, so I'll share my screen. Audience, the objective of today's presentation is to inform you about this university, which is probably the largest university in Delhi and NCR. So let us start with the picture of this. A picture speaks more than 1,000 words, so I believe it is speaking so. So this university is located in Dwarka, but then this university is made up of around 80 to 90 affiliated colleges, which are spread in Delhi and NCR. I'll just come to the point what we mean by NCR. So this is what we are going to discuss today in the coming 25 minutes. Seema ma'am, I'm specifying 25 minutes because students, they hate long pravachans, so it's not going to be there. Yes, and when we say 25 minutes, we mean it. So these are the things which we are going to discuss in this presentation. First, what is this university? What are the courses available? What's the admission process? what are the fee structures, and what are the career avenues after these professional courses. Now, while we talk about this university, students, I must tell you that there are 4 categories of universities, or there are 4 types of universities. Uh, First is the central universities like JNU or Jamia or University of Delhi. Second is the state government universities. Third is the deemed university, and fourth are the private universities. So when we talk about the Indian scenario, taken all these 4 categories together, we have 875 universities in this country. And IPU is Indraprasth University is the first university to be established once Delhi got the status of a partial state. So it was established in 1998. It was established by Delhi government, which we call the government of NCT of Delhi, National Capital Territory, right? Now, when we talk about rankings, well, rankings is a very, very controversial area, because there are so many organizations which keep on ranking, and like ranking is controversial because there are various reasons due to which the rankings happen. So the rankings which I am discussing before you today is not a ranking given by any magazine or any journal like India Today or Frontline. No, we are not talking about such rankings. The rankings which we are discussing today are authentic because they are given by the government of India itself. So the government established something called NIRF, which is the National Institutional Ranking Framework. So NIRF says that IPU's rank is 95th. So in a way, in relative terms, I can say that it stands among the top 10% universities in this country, right? At the same time, NIRF also provides rankings in terms of courses. So while we talk about engineering, the rank is 86th. And in terms of business management for courses like BBA, MBA, the ranking is among the top 5% in this country. And while I talk about these rankings, I am talking about the courses taken together in all the affiliated colleges, which are spread, as I said, in Delhi and NCR. There's another government grading agency, we call it NAC. It has graded A. It has given A grade to IP University. There's another thing which you must understand, and that is international equivalence of a degree. Now, it may happen that your degree is not recognized in other countries, but then there is a setup called AIU, which means Association of Indian Universities. If any university is a member of AIU, it simply means that the degree of that particular university is recognized throughout the world. So obviously, IPU being a Delhi government university has got that membership. So the degree is recognized throughout the world. There are around 95 colleges belonging to IP University, which are located in Delhi and NCR. Now I'll tell you what is NCR. NCR is a term which is very well defined, which includes Delhi, obviously, and the districts adjoining Delhi. So these districts are Gurugram, then Gautam Budh Nagar, like Noida, Greater Noida, Ghaziabad, etc. Faridabad. So in these districts, the IPU colleges are located along with Delhi. Talking about the courses, IPU has got a good range of courses. These are 80 in number. And in terms of students, it's a very large university, 80,000 students. Moving to the next point. What is IPU known for? Like in Delhi, there are 2 major universities, University of Delhi and IPU. There are so many universities in Delhi, but why I'm saying 2 major? Because these 2 universities have the large number of students, and they are made up of around 90 odd colleges. So everywhere we find that there are colleges either belonging to DU or IPU. Now, why I am showing this slide to you is that these 2 universities, University of Delhi and IPU, they do not compete with each other. Rather, they complement each other. What do I mean? Well, it simply means that University of Delhi runs academic courses while IPU runs professional courses. Or rather, the basic reason why IPU was established is to promote professional courses. So we need to understand what is a professional course and what is an academic course. Well, anything like MA History or MA Psychology or MA Sociology is an academic course, while anything like BTech or BBA or journalism or say hotel management or architecture is an professional course. So how do we understand the difference between these two? Well, this is my way of interpreting. Principal ma'am may disagree, Shalini may disagree, but I believe that an academic course provides you knowledge, obviously, but an professional course provides you knowledge plus how to apply that knowledge plus the corporate ready attitude. So therefore, the output in the case of a professional course is placement, while in the case of an academic course is knowledge enhancement. Or in a way, what I'm trying to tell is that a professional course trains students for a specific profession, while an academic course does not do so. Say, for example, if anyone is doing BTech computer science, then that person is going to become a computer science professional. If someone is doing BHMCT, that person is going to become a hotel management professional. While if someone is doing BCom or BA or BSc, then there is no specific profession for which the person is being trained. It's like open-ended. So IPU is known for professional courses and University of Delhi is known for academic courses. To close this slide, I must tell that with the kind of economic changes in this scenario, what are the changes? The changes are, we can define them in terms of LPG, liberalization, privatization, globalization. So with LPG happening, the government sector is shrinking while the private sector is expanding. And yes, the private sector needs people who have done professional courses rather than people who have done academic courses. While talking about IPU, we must talk about the notable alumni. This may be an interesting section. I don't know whether Seema Malik ma'am is able to guess or not who can be the notable alumni. But ma'am, yes, the first picture which I am going to show is your favorite. So it's Tapsi Pannu. Yes, she did her BTech in computer science from IPU, and everyone knows for what she's known. Then a very popular author, God of the Salid, and these are bestsellers. Gaurav also did his journalism from IPU. Then the deputy leader of Congress, Mr. Gogoi, also did his BTech electronics from IPU. And last but not the least, although this list is not comprehensive, this is what I could find out. Guneet Monga, everyone knows Gangs of Wasepur and Masan and Zuba and all these films. So she also did her journalism and mass comm from IPU. We move to the second part of the presentation today, which is the courses available. As I said, the courses available are professional. IPU is not known for academic courses. Now, let us divide the professional courses into categories. Like there are courses which need a specific background in 12th, but then there are courses which do not need any specific background. So courses which do not need any specific background, we call them stream neutral courses. So these courses include BA LLB, BBA LLB, journalism and mass communication, BBA, hotel management and catering technology. These are the courses for which students, you may be having humanities or commerce or maths or bio or even vocational studies, you are eligible. Yes, the basic eligibility remains that you should have minimum 50% at your 12th. For BTech, it's slightly lower, it's 45% at 12th. So these are the stream neutral courses. We would be talking about the scope of these in the last section of today's presentation. These integrated courses were not there when I was a student. Say I did my 12th in 1990. So during those times, integrated courses were not there in this country. The beauty of these integrated courses is that they provide you 2 degrees simultaneously. You choose your career right after 12th and you save 1 year. So if you do BBA LLB separately, then it's 3 years plus 3 years. But if you do integrated course, it's 5 years, you get 2 professional degrees. So this is about the courses which are stream neutral. And stream neutral means whatever is your background does not matter. These courses simply need a person who has got basic skills and IQ, right? Um, Moving to the second category of courses, they need some specific background. So Bachelor of Architecture, Bachelor of Technology, yes, for these courses, you need to have mathematics at your 12th. And as I said, the basic eligibility remains. For engineering, it's 45%. For architecture, again, it's 50%. As far as the bio courses are concerned at IPU, we have Bachelor of Pharmacy and Bachelor of Science in Nursing. That's all about the courses. So there are around 80 courses, but in this presentation, I could not include all the 80. There are courses like MBBS, obviously it's there at IPU. There are courses in yoga, etc., which I have not included. I have included only the popular courses or the major courses which are there at IPU. Moving to the next section, the third part of today's presentation, the admission process. Students, I can tell you that IPU is one of the most digitized university in this country. So this admission process was digitized even before COVID happened. So you simply click this link. This is the information brochure. You get each and every information there. And while you click this link, you find that there is something called registration. You pay 1,200 rupees and you can register yourself if you want to take admission in any course. The last date for applying for this registration is 31st July. It was 15th July, but today only we got the news that the last date has been advanced to 31st of July. Now there's an important point here. There are a few courses for which IPU does not conduct its own entrance examination. Which are these courses and what is the reason for that? The reason is very simple. If there's a national level test, then why should IPU go for duplication? So as far as law is concerned, CLAT is the test in which you need to appear, and the scores of CLAT will be considered by IPU. You simply need to register yourself for IPU from the above given link. Similarly, for engineering, you need to appear for JEE and no other entrance is required. You simply need to register. So for such courses, registration means participation in counseling. It does not mean entrance test. So for courses like engineering, law, architecture, etc., IPU does not conduct its own entrance. It goes by the national level exam so that there is no duplication. While for other courses like BBA, hotel management, journalism, etc., IPU conducts its own entrance exam. So while you will be registering for the exam also, right? Then there's a special provision due to COVID. All of us are praying to God that the third wave may not come. But yes, people are skeptical. So a special provision has been given by IPU in 2021 that the students can visit and admit. Means they can visit their nearby college, and the college has been given powers and authority to finalize the admission then and there. Of course, the college must be having its own process like a brief interview or something like that. But this is a special provision due to COVID. That's all about the admission process. Moving on, what are we talking about here? Yes, students, I must tell you about the fee structures because it's your parents' hard-earned money, and then we live in Delhi, and Delhi is a hub of so many colleges and universities, and there's a huge range of fee structures. Well, IPU is a Delhi government university. The fee is I'll not say reasonable, that is for you to decide. So the fee structure is 80,000 to 1,10,000. The fee will range between this per annum. At the same time, with a government university, do not expect any hidden charges. It is not possible that tomorrow the college tells you that you pay additionally for placements or picnic or anything. So this is the beauty of a government organization, that they have reasonable charges and there are no hidden charges. Coming to scholarships, yes, students, do you know that Delhi government is the richest government in this country? Well, it is. There are so many perceptions that Gujarat is the richest state or Maharashtra, but I'm a student of economics. I can tell you in terms of per capita income, Delhi is the richest government in this country. Now, the students get advantage of that richness. How do they get the advantages? They get advantages in terms of scholarships. I can tell you, I have worked with so many organizations, and since the last 25 years, I am into academics. I can tell you, as far as scholarships are concerned, Delhi government, being the richest, has got marvelous scholarships. And there's a very popular scheme called Merit Cum Means. And this scheme is not based on any caste or creed or community. The beauty of this scholarship is that people from any income group, any caste, they can apply, and there are no filters. The students are bound to get the scholarship. Yes, there is a small filter. What is that? 60% and no reappear. So if you are studying in any Delhi, any college of IPU, there are these schemes. You can apply for them and the scholarship is yours. There are no filters. Then there are several other schemes for reserved category, for minorities, for economically weaker sections. But this Merit Cum Means is a special scholarship which I have witnessed only with the Delhi government. Moving on, talking about the reservations. In the previous webinars, many students have been asking questions about reservations. Yes, being a government university, all the categories, all the kinds of reservations do exist. Now we have reached the last section of this presentation, which is about the scope of the professional courses, which we discussed just now. So first we'll talk about the law courses. Well, when we talk about the law courses, we divide its scope into 4 kinds, right? A law course has got 4 areas where students can have their career. First is litigation. You can become an advocate, you can start practicing. Second is you can join a law firm, you can do a job. Third is you can prepare for judiciary, become a judge, right? So when I say judge, the correct word is magistrate. So you can become a magistrate, or you can, there are so many government jobs. And the fourth option for law students is politics. How do I say so? Means you may say that it's a wrong statement, but I can prove my point. You look around in our country, you look around the whole world, and you find that advocates are there in majority in politics. You talk about Jawaharlal Nehru, you talk about Mahatma Gandhi, you talk about Sardar Patel. What was common among them? The only common thing was all of them were law graduates. Of course, all of them, another common thing was that all 3 of them did their LLB from London, like Ma'am Seema Malik went to London. Okay, so you go to USA, Barack Obama or Kamala Harris, the Indian Vice President of USA. Again, what is common among them? All of them are law graduates. So therefore, I tell my students that politics seems to be a very important area where law graduates can succeed. So to conclude about the scope of a law course, yes, you can join practice, what we call litigation. You can join a law firm, you can do a job, you can join the judiciary, you can become a magistrate, and you can become a politician. Talking about the scope of journalism and mass comm, well, there is something called OTT, over the top, which defines the scope of journalism and mass comm. What is OTT? Well, anything what you can see on your mobile is over the top. So whether it is Netflix or Sony Live or Amazon Prime or whatever, we call it OTT platform. And yes, whatever you are watching on these OTT platforms is being prepared by whom? These are the journalism and mass comm students. So OTT is an area. I can tell you that when this COVID happened, people said that the theaters are closed, the functions are not being held, so the scope of media professionals will face a problem. But then, like necessity is the mother of invention, crisis is the mother of innovation. So what happened was that the media industry innovated itself, and then came the OTT. And I can tell you that the media professionals now have multiple times job opportunities vis-a-vis the previous age when there were theaters and programs being held. So this is how things keep on changing. So while we talk about the scope of journalism and mass comm, yes, OTT platform defines the entire scope. Coming to a management course, there are traditional areas wherein a management professional can find a career, and there are the new areas. So what are the traditional areas? We call them marketing, finance, HR. These are the traditional areas. While we talk about the new areas, these are international business, operations, retail, aviation, pharma. These all are new and upcoming areas wherein a BBA can find a job. But to conclude the scope of jobs for BBA or MBA, I can tell you we live in a mismanaged world. Yes, not to be on the pessimistic mode, but yes, we live in a mismanaged world, and therefore managers are needed everywhere, right? I believe Ma'am Seema Malik is a good manager, because good managers think about their students, and that is why this counseling session was organized, so that proper information can reach to the students. So this is about management. We need managers everywhere, and that is the scope of a management course. Yes, in traditional terms, marketing, finance, HR, and in the modern terms, international business, operations, retail, pharma, etc. Talking about hotel management, yes, everyone knows that this is an area which has taken a beating due to COVID. Well, recently I visited Hyderabad, and a five-star hotel, Taj Deccan, was quoting a rate which was 25% of its previous rates. So you can understand the way this industry, hotel management, is facing a problem. So the question is whether students should go for this course or not. So the answer is that uh, crisis is the mother of innovation. I'm sure hotel industry is going to innovate itself, and while students who will take admission in 2021, while they'll be graduating in 2025 and so on and so forth, by that time this industry will be in a good shape. Human being is a social animal. We need to socialize. We need to go for recreation, and therefore we do need hotels and good hotels. So that is about the scope of hotel management and catering technology. Yes, there are areas like front office, housekeeping, food and beverages, etc., where the students who do hotel management course, they find their careers. Well, BTech is something where we need to understand a little in detail. Why? Because engineering is something which is very much pattern based. There are so many patterns which we have witnessed in engineering. In the post-independence era, we found that civil engineering was at the top. Then came electrical, then came mechanical. But then what is happening today? Well, in the post-COVID area, there is one field of engineering which is facing a boom. And I can tell you in the coming 3 to 4 decades, this area is going to ride a boom. And that area is computer science engineering. Well, in the post-COVID area, in the post-COVID era, the entire world will move the digital way. And who's going to drive that move? The computer science engineers. So yes, when I talk about the scope of BTech, I must acknowledge the fact that the traditional engineering areas, they don't have much scope, but the areas like computer science, they have got immense scope. So this is about the scope of technology. Talking about architecture, yes, in the post-demonetization era, architecture is facing a problem. I must acknowledge and make it clear to the students that after demonetization, the civil industry faced a big problem. But then in a country like India with population, with 18% of world population, I believe that the need of housing is going to be incessant. It's going to be there for all times to come. So in between there may be a time when architecture is facing a problem, but soon this need is going to rise. Talking about the bio areas, yes, pharmacy is an area. COVID caught us napping. Why COVID caught us napping? Because I can tell you the figures, governments around the world were spending less than 2% on health. So in the post-COVID era, I believe governments, rather I'm hopeful, I wish so, that governments will spend on the health sector, and which defines the scope of pharma industry. Well, India is known for producing reasonably priced medicines, and therefore the pharma sector is going to be a sunshine sector in the coming times, especially in the post-COVID era. Talking about nursing, well, there should not be any taboo attached with nursing. I can tell you, Indian nurses, and when I use the word nurse, it is not for females. This word can be used for males as well as females. So Indian nurses are popular internationally. You go to Gulf, you visit any Gulf country, you will find everywhere that Indian nurses are highly respected and they are very popular because of a very good service kind of attitude. That's all from my side. We are moving towards the conclusion now. This is the question which is coming to your mind, isn't it? Which course is best for me? Well, no good counselor will be judgmental. No good counselor will be judgmental and tell you that A course is good or B course is bad. Well, I can tell you, look at this diagram. This diagram is, we call it a bell-shaped curve in statistics. This diagram simply tells you that in any given area, any given course, 50% people do well, they are successful. 25% are very successful and 25% are not successful. So I'll not be judgmental. I'll not tell you that A course is good or B is good or go for this thing. Whichever course you do, this is the kind of result which you get. So don't worry. I'll tell you what to do. In the last slide of today's presentation, I'll give you a formula for success. Do you believe anyone can give a formula for success? I think only Nirmal Baba has that. So, we have a different way of answering that. We are teachers, students. The requirement for success is the right set of knowledge. The knowledge of skills means you must know how to apply that knowledge, and you should have the corporate ready attitude. If you have knowledge, skills, and attitude, this is the only formula for success which anyone on this earth can tell you. That's all from my side. Thank you for being a good audience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for that presentation. Preeti ma'am, you can go ahead with the questions. Students, you can directly ask your questions by writing in the chat box as well.
Yeah, thank you, Shalini ma'am. The first question which I have received from my students is, they say that they are asking, does the college offer hands-on training?
Yeah, so as I said, the difference between an academic and a professional course is that a professional course has got embedded trainings in the curricula. Say, for example, if you talk about journalism, so after semesters, hands-on training in the print media. After fourth semester, there is a hands-on training with the digital media. During the sixth semester, they have a project. So that is how I answered your question. In any professional course, hands-on training is an integral part of the curriculum. You take any course, it's an integral part.
So when we talk of hands-on training, the students are interested in knowing whether are the college faculty is providing and helping them with the internships?
Obviously, this is the duty of the college to provide internships to its students. So when I talk about internships, then, well, students, I can tell you that all of us are at a very advantageous position vis-a-vis colleges located in the interior cities of this country. Say, for example, a college at Jalandhar may find it difficult to get internships and placements, but a college located in Delhi finds it very easy because we are in the hub of corporates. So I can tell you, colleges find very easy to get internships and placements for the student, especially in the Delhi NCR region. That's the advantage which we have. That is the huge geographical advantage.
Thank you so
So
much.
colleges provide the internships.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. And the next question that has come is, what is the average class size in the introductory classes?
AICTE, which defines the professional courses in this country, has defined the size of a class. It's not the average size. It's not the minimum or maximum. The size of any given class is 60.
60.
While you are asking about introductory class, well, it's introductory or the last class, the size is 60 only. 60 students in a class.
Thank you, sir. So the next question is, does IPU provide any course in microbiology or biotechnology?
Yeah, IPU does have courses in microbiology and biotechnology. Probably in biotechnology, they have BTech also. Well, I can tell you about biotechnology and microbiology that these are research-oriented fields. So if anyone is interested in research, then only you should go for these areas. So, and yes, as far as the placements are concerned, microbiology and biotechnology, they have got a lot of placements in developed nations, because we must acknowledge the fact that developing nations do not invest much on research. So while we talk about research, especially in biotechnology, like I can give an example of one of my friend who was doctorate in biotechnology, who could not find a very decent job in our country, but he's a success in USA. Because those countries spend a lot on research in areas like biotech, and we do not. Let us acknowledge the fact. So anyone interested in research should go for areas like biotechnology and microbiology. And yes, these courses are available with IPU.
Yeah, and so does the computer science offer specialization in artificial intelligence?
Okay, students, that's a very, very intelligent question, in the sense that I need to give the background of the way education is designed. Ma'am Seema knows about that. Dr. Preeti also knows about that. At the graduation level, we do not have any specializations, be it MBBS or say BBA or any course. Specializations generally come at the postgraduate level. So if you are doing BTech in computer science, it will not be BTech in artificial intelligence. Yes, artificial intelligence will be taught to you along with the languages like Java or Python, or all such things will be taught. But at BTech, at graduation level, there cannot be any specialization like artificial intelligence, right? Please try to understand this point. So at graduation level, we do not have specialization. To give an example, like MBBS cannot be in Opthel or Pedia. You go for these specializations only while you do your MD or MS. Similarly, if say like in physics or in MBA, I go for a specialization while I do my post-graduation at BBA. I cannot specialization in marketing, finance, or HR. So graduation is generic in nature, and at post-graduation level, we have specializations. Well, Dr. Preeti, I know some private universities which have come up with BTech in artificial intelligence, but I do not agree with that. I am aware of that, like BTech in cyber intelligence. I don't know how do they do that, because at the graduation level, the basic grounding should be there. Once you have a good basic grounding, You can go in cyber, like cyber security or artificial intelligence or any area. But at the graduation level, no specialization is there. You look around the world, it's not there. Yes, a few private universities have started that, but these are all, fancy options.
I agree with you, because in graduation, what we really need to do is to expose the students to all possible domains of the subject.
Right.
Whatever the student is happy with, or whatever the child later on wants to specialize in, the student can then take it up at the master's level. So graduation actually exposes you to the subject in toto, which means every single aspect and branch and sub-branch is also there in the graduation, and then you select anyone for the masters.
So we can say graduation is like Kathak, which makes your body flexible.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any other question, Preeti?
Yeah, the last question which I have got is, so as of now, many students must have been placed. Can you give some idea where are the students placed? Some of the companies, like.
Okay, so I'll first give the generic answer and then the specific answer. So if you ask about the generic answer, I don't think there is any company on this world where IPU students are not there, right? And we have women like Tapsi Pannu who are ranked among the most powerful women consistently. So these are the products of IPU. Coming to the specifics, well, do not expect Microsoft to visit IPU, please. Do not expect Google to visit, because these companies, they visit Indian Institute of Science Bangalore, which is even above the IITs. So let us be very fair in that. Similarly, these big companies like we call it fan companies, FAAAN. So Facebook or Alphabet or Amazon or these companies, well, Amazon, yes, I'll just come to that. So these big companies, they visit the topmost colleges in the country. In some cases, they do visit IPU colleges, but that is not the general trend. Yes, then there are companies like Amazon or NIIT, or for that matter, you name any company, they visit, they select students from IPU colleges, and you can find our students in each and every company on this earth. I can challenge that. Everywhere you can find products from IPU.
In which year was it established?
The year of establishment, as I said in the first slide, was 1998, which was soon after Delhi got its partial statehood.
Okay. So it's been more than 20 years now.
Yes, it's like that.
Okay. So it was very wonderful to know from you, Professor Ravikant, that options are too many in the professional courses, and the students should not limit themselves only in thinking that the academic courses are the only way to move ahead in life, and we can always select those courses where we find most successful people. I mean, even if we don't talk about a particular university, you will find people from these courses, they are everywhere. And that's the reason why the students must start thinking of taking a professional degree courses, because they are really going to open a lot of doors for future jobs and opportunities.
Any further questions, Preeti ma'am?
No,
Okay,
we don't have any.
Right. So I think we can conclude the session. So thank you so much, Seema ma'am. Thanks for all the support and giving your consent for this session. So thank you for the support. Thank you, Preeti ma'am, for all the coordination and everything. I've troubled you a lot for chasing you and following up with you. So thank you so much for all the support that you have given me. Thank you, sir. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. It's always a pleasure to hear you. And last but not the least, thank you, wonderful students who have taken out the time to hear this presentation. So thank you. Thank you all.
Pleasure is all ours. Thank you so much.